Hello friends, welcoming you all back to Current Affairs Prelims program of GIAS Potential Builder for the Prelims 2021, UPSC Prelims 2021. These are the 10 topics which we are going to discuss today. In the description given below, we are providing you with a Telegram channel link where every day we are posting few questions as well as other exam related information. So for regular updates and quick revision, follow us on YouTube as well as Telegram channel. This is the contact number of the institute which is given below. Contact us for admission related inquiries. So without any further delay, let's go into the topic of today. The first topic which we are going to discuss today is National Family Health Survey 5. So this is the fifth survey. Already 4 surveys have been done in this. 4 surveys have already been done. The reason being it in news is that Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has published the survey for 22 states and union territories that comprises of 17 states and 5 union territories as of now. So coming to this family health survey, National Family Health Survey, it's a reliable and comparable data in the sense it's a authentic as well as a comparable data in the sense you can compare it with the before surveys. Reliable and comparable data sheets of health, family welfare and other issues. So this talks about all these things, other issues. So various parameters are analyzed in this survey and it's a household survey that is taken throughout India. So the implementing ministry, the publishing ministry of Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and the nodal agency for taking survey is International Institute for Population Sciences, and the funding for this survey is done from various international organizations such as United Nations, UNICEF, then Bill and Melinda Gates, those kind of private institutions and many other international institutions are responsible in funding this survey. So this survey has been delayed due to the second phase of the survey is delayed due to the COVID pandemic, which is expected to be released by May 2021. So in this totally 130 parameters, around 130 parameters are taken into account. Also in this survey, many new things have been introduced such as immunization that has been taken into account. Then antenatal care, institutional deliveries, those are taken into account, institutional deliveries, antenatal care. So those things are taken into account, as well as one more thing that is important in this survey is that it mentions about the internet usage. So internet usage data has also been recorded in this survey. So that is percentage of women and men who have ever used internet. So this is also taken into account, and this survey is in line with sustainable development goals that are to be done before 2030. So it is also in link with the sustainable development goals which aim to be achieved by 2020. So let's go into the detailed analysis of this survey. So coming to the overall malnutrition analysis, child malnutrition. So this is much important as child malnutrition is showing a variable trend. That is, if a statement is given like child malnutrition has been decreasing all over India for the past decade, then the statement will be wrong. This is because the NFHS, National Family Health Survey 3, which was taken between 2005 to 2006, 2005 to 2006, and 4 that is taken between 2014 to 15. In this period, when we compare these two these two surveys, it has shown that malnutrition have been decline. But coming to this census of National Family Health Survey 5, in this comparing the 4 and 5, it is seen that the malnutrition level has increased. So child malnutrition is showing a variable trend. So this is one of the fact that has to be noted from this survey. So there can be a statement citing that National Family Health Survey 5 states that the malnutrition has been decreasing over the past few years or compared to the last census, which is a wrong statement. It has been increasing. So this is one thing which we need to know. Other thing is in coming to child malnutrition again, it has been shown that major number of states have worsened. States worsened in this malnutrition. So this is the reason why overall also the trend is comparatively decline, or I mean increasing. So the rate at which it is increasing is much higher. The reason behind is this because there have been many measures by different ministries to contain this child malnutrition, but due to COVID-19 pandemic, the implementation of these schemes right now has been put under pressure. So it is not able to make the necessary contributions that it can do. This is the reason why the malnutrition trend has been increasing in this, one of the reason why it has been increasing. Coming to other data, it is shown that the infant and child mortality, so death, has been declining comparatively. So comparatively it's declining in many states. So this includes, this infant and child mortality includes three types of mortality. One is neonatal mortality. In neonatal mortality, the child is considered less than 28 days of age. So if you see that it has been decreasing. So first 28 days after the child is born is found is named as neonatal. So that death, so we compare to 100 live births, how many neonatals are dying? If you will take it, that has been decreasing. Then coming to infant mortality, so infant is less than 1 year of age, a child below 1 year of age. So that has also been showing a decreasing trend, and under 5 mortality is also showing a decreasing trend compared to the last census. So the steep decline is shown in few states. Those states are Sikkim, that is they are performing well. So Sikkim, Assam, Goa and Jammu and Kashmir. So these states are showing a steep decline in all the three parameters. But infant and child mortality is high in the state of Bihar. So this point we need to note. In Bihar, it has been showing an increasing state. Overall, the best state is awarded to Kerala. The best performing state overall is Kerala. So this also gives us certain findings about immunization. So coming to child immunization, the rate of child immunization has been in a good trend. So it has been increasing. The child immunization has been increasing and it is good for the child because it can prevent many vaccine preventable diseases. So it has increased. This is due to the immunization programs such as Indradhanush. So it has increased and full immunization has been achieved in full immunization, which is given between 12 to 23 months. Once the child is born, full immunization that has also been increasing. So this is 2/3 of the fully immunized in all states. So increased to 2/3. So basically 2/3 are completely immunized except a few states, that is Nagaland, Meghalaya and Assam. These are the three states which are not contributed much to this immunization drives. Then coming to this survey also gives us data about non-communicable diseases. These are the things which are included. Then use of alcohol among children. Then diabetes diabetes above 15 years of age. So these are the things, other things which are also included in this survey. So it's basically expanded to these areas as well. Then coming to the mother's maternal health, it shows that the antenatal care, that is when during the initial stages of pregnancy and before pregnancy, the care whatever is taken is called as antenatal care, and after delivery it is called as postnatal care. Before the child is given birth, it is known as antenatal care. From the time of pregnancy, that is pregnancy is announced till the childbirth. So that has been showing a increasing trend. Coming to the total fertility rate. So total fertility rate has been decreasing. So the total fertility rate is nothing but during the reproductive age of a woman, how much child she can bear. So the reproductive age of a woman is around calculated for 15 to 49 years of age. So what is the capacity of the women to deliver the child, how many child she can deliver? It is taken as the total fertility rate, and it has been showing a decreasing trend, which is good to sustain the population level. So this has been decreasing, as well as the replacement fertility rate. Replacement fertility rate is also achieved in 19 out of 22 states that has been surveyed as of now. So in this replacement fertility rate, the 3 states which are not in par or which is above this replacement levels are Manipur, Meghalaya, and Bihar. These three states have a replacement levels above 2.1. So 2.1 is the replacement level fertility. This is, if this is there, then the population can be is proper. It shows like that. And also coming to one more point that I need to tell in child malnutrition is that children who are born between 2014 to 19, their malnutrition level are much higher. So 2014 to 19, if a child is born, those child's malnutrition rate is comparatively higher compared to the before the child born before these years. So then coming to this survey also shows about this undernutrition and under this thing. So coming to stunting, stunting is height for age, the height that the child should have for age. That is also showing a worrying trend, as because there is an increase in this child stunting, as well as coming to child overweight. That is child overweight in the sense for the age they are having a much higher weight, and child underweight is for the age they are having a much lesser weight. So overweight can be even equated with obesity, which can lead to diabetes and other things in children. So that is why, so young age diabetes is because of overweight. And coming to underweight, underweight is for malnutrition and those things. Then child wasting. Wasting is nothing but for they don't have the required amount of weight for height. So weight to height ratio is child wasting. So these are showing a worrying trend, as well as anemia is a cause of problem for both children as well as pregnant women. So anemia is a cause of concern. These are all the findings of this survey 5. These are certain findings of this survey 5. Coming to the internet penetration, if you will see the women, if you will see the internet, the urban and rural gender gap in internet usage, it has been between the urban and rural areas. The internet usage is comparatively higher in urban areas than the rural areas. So the rural areas, women using the internet is comparatively lesser. So this is one of the data. Coming to women opening bank account, number of women opening bank account has been increasing. So it has increased. It shows a positive trend. So women opening bank account is increasing, which is a positive trend. That has to be noted. So these are the few facts about National Family Health Survey 5. Coming to when this health surveys, the background of this health surveys, this family health survey has been done in 4 rounds. So basically it was done in 4 rounds earlier. The third one was in the year 2003, as I told you. So these are the things, and the first one was conducted in the year 1971. So first survey was conducted in 1971, and these are few things about it. And coming to the fifth this survey, it was released on the Universal Health Coverage Day, which was held on 12th of December. Universal Health Coverage Day, which is in 12th of December. Then on this day the survey was introduced. And coming to another thing, the earlier surveys were based on a decentralized manner. That is, each and even in district levels, the survey will be taken. So it will be from a decentralized manner. But now, from now on, it is to be made sure that the government is trying to make sure that it is going to happen in a centralized way. That is, the national survey will be covering all the aspects of health, family health, welfare, and everything. So it's going to be a centralized approach from a decentralized approach. And one more thing is that it will be held every 3 years. From now on, the survey will be held every 3 years. Also, this survey includes some other measures like toilet facilities during the during menses for girls. So it also takes into account the menstrual hygiene into menstrual hygiene is also taken into consideration. So these are the facts about this National Family Health Survey. So let's move on to the next issue. Sorry, there was a wrong information. I told the first survey was taken in 1971. It's not 1971. It was taken between 1992 to 93. Please make a note of it. It's from 1992 to 93. And one more additional information is that Global Nutrition Report indicates that India will be among the 88 countries that will be missing out the global nutrition targets by 2025. So that will be missed out by India. It is one of the 88 countries to miss out the targets due to the high level of malnutrition and hidden hunger that is prevalent in India. So let's go to the next topic. Please make note of it. First survey was done in the year 1992 to 93. So getting to the next topic. So the next topic is about National Startup Advisory Council. The reason being this National Startup Advisory Council in news is that the first meeting of the council was held recently. So coming to this National Startup Advisory Council, this is set by Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, which comes under Commerce Ministry. So Ministry of Commerce and it comes under Ministry of Commerce and Industry. The basic aim of this startup is to build an innovation ecosystem and for developing startup across the countries. And the major thing is that it includes semi-urban as well as the rural areas under consideration, where this innovation culture has been at a little backer side. So these regions of the country is also included in the national startup census. So the first meeting was held recently. Coming to the composition of this, basically this chairman of this council is the Minister of Commerce and Industry. So it's the Minister of Commerce and Industry. And then the convener of this council is Joint Secretary of DPIIT. That is Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. Then this also has some non-official members who are from various fields appointed by the central government. So our non-official members are appointed by the central government. They are from various fields, like they can be successful business heads or successful startup companies. Those kinds of people are included in it. Also, ex officio members are present. These ex officio members are not less than joint secretary rank. So it includes people not below the joint secretary rank. Then coming to the reason behind why this is important is because we know World Bank releases ease of doing business report. So World Bank's ease of business doing report, in that starting a new business shows a declining trend in India. Not declining exactly. India is back in starting a new business. So its position that it holds in starting a new business is 136. But India's overall ranking in ease of doing business is 63. So this shows though India is performing well in other indicators, but starting a business, new business has been is one of the black logs along with one or two other parameters. So that is the reason why innovation has always been important for the present governments. So it's basically for promoting innovation and developing a startup culture in various parts of the country. So this is all about it. May I see the ministry it is responsible for and the chairman, and these informations are much enough. So let's move on to the next issue. So the next issue is about Project Dolphin. The reason being it in news is that two reasons are there. One is on the lines of Project Tiger. Lines of Project Tiger, the government has decided to launch this Project Dolphin for the protection of dolphin. It saves both river as well as marine dolphins. So India has a large variety of dolphins, so it's for all the thing. So this is the first thing why it's in news, and the second thing is in Orissa there has been a dolphin census that has been taken recently. So let's see it in detail now. So coming to this Project Dolphin, this project was first approved in the first meeting of National Ganga Council. National Ganga Council is nothing but National Ganga River Basin Authority. So this is National Ganga Council. So this is basically for improving the status of river Ganga. That is to clean Ganga. It's a mission to clean Ganga, and it's a mission to take care of the river and the associated animals with it. Animals and the associated species basically, whichever thrives on river Ganga. So basically it is to get rid of Ganga from the pollution that is happening due to waste disposal and other kinds of stuffs, industrial disposals and waste disposals like this religious bathing and throwing of this corpse into the river. With whatever is polluting Ganga, to clean Ganga, this mission has been in phase. So now let's come into dolphins in detail. So there are, as of now, there are 4 dolphins in India. One is Gangetic dolphin, Irrawaddy dolphin, bottlenose dolphin, and Indian Ocean humpback dolphin. Let's go deeper into it. It is to be noted that Gangetic dolphin is the national aquatic animal of India. So it was declared so in the year 2009. Due to its declining trend and its importance, it has been, to save this animal, it has been named as the national aquatic animal in the year 2009. So coming to Gangetic dolphin. These are few details about Gangetic dolphin. Basically, Gangetic dolphins holds a IUCN status of endangered species. They are endangered, and the other name of this species is Susu. It's locally called as Susu. Basically, they are blind. They are blind and they use sound, that is ultrasonic sound waves, to capture their prey as well as to know about the enemies, or such as this to know about their hurdles in water. So they make use of the ultrasonic sound waves to detect the prey and everything. And one more information is that they thrive only on fresh water. Then coming to their protection status, as I told, they are IUCN endangered, and they are also in the Wildlife Appendix 1 of Wildlife Protection Act of 1972, and also a Site 1 species. They are also in Conservation of Migratory Species. They hold Appendix 2, which also is a higher degree of attraction in CMS, Conservation of Migratory Species. And also dolphin happens to be the indicator. This Gangetic dolphin happens to be an indicator species. Indicator species in the sense, these reflect the health of the ecosystem where they are present. So this species, declining trend of this species means that the water, like the Ganga river is polluted, and that is why they are showing a decreasing trend. And this species is spread across, in India, they are spread across Assam, UP, MP, Rajasthan, Bihar, Jammu and Kashmir, and Bengal. These are the states which they are spread across. Mostly they are in these are and they were officially discovered in the year 1801. These species are officially discovered in the year 1801, and this is one of the oldest species according to Wildlife Protection Act. Then coming to, there has been some initiatives. There has been a conservation action plan for saving this dolphin, Gangetic dolphin. Conservation action plan for Gangetic dolphins between the year 2010 to 2030. Sorry, 2010 to 2020. This is basically to identify the threats these dolphin face, like the turbines of ships. Those things can be a hurdle to them, or the pollution of water. These things are much hurdle. The fishing nets are like problematic to them. Then there is a centrally sponsored scheme called Development of Wildlife Habitat, which lists around 21 species. So 21 species that has to be protected. Wildlife habitat, it's a centrally sponsored scheme, that is state and central both has the thing. So this dolphin is one among the 25 species which attracts this protection. Then coming to other initiatives by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, there also happens to be a Vikramshila dolphin, Ganges dolphin sanctuary in Bihar. This is given in this, yeah, you will see here, it is given here, Vikramshila Gangetic dolphin sanctuary has been opened in Bihar. So under the Wildlife Protection Act. So this is one more information. The year 1991 it has been opened. And then coming to as the PMO said that the setting up of Project Dolphin was made in the National Ganga Council, which is headed by our Prime Minister. And also, if you will see, other thing is that there has been a day named over this dolphin, Gangetic dolphin, that is 5th October is celebrated as, it's considered as National Ganga River Dolphin Day. It's a Dolphin Day, 5th October. So this is given by National Clean Ganga, National Mission for Clean Ganga. This is based on that, and on this day there has been few initiatives done last year. One is Dolphin Jalaj Safari. This is basically promoting of eco-friendly tourism. So promoter of eco-friendly tourism along the Ganges River. So this happens in 3 states. It's spread across 3 states over 6 sites. This is going to be there, and also it includes the dolphin safari and 6 sites. The 3 states are UP, Bihar and West Bengal. These are the states where this Dolphin Jalaj Safari is going to happen. And one more thing that has been done on this day is My Ganga, My Dolphin. It's a census over 250 kilometers. It's a census, dolphin census held over 250 kilometers along the Ganges River. It is done between Bijnor to Nararo. That is all about this dolphin, like Gangetic dolphin. Now let's see about Irrawaddy dolphin. The reason being is that, as I already told, they are found in Odisha. Mostly they thrive in marine waters. So these Irrawaddy dolphins are in marine waters. Basically, if you will see Chilika Lake in Odisha, they hold about these other three types of dolphins. The other 3 types of dolphins are found in this Odisha state when the census was taken. So Irrawaddy, this Chilika lake is the largest brackish water lake, and it happens to be the first Ramsar site. But it is taken out now, as it's got its natural that regained back from pollution and those things. So it's taken out of the list. So Chilika Water Lake is the largest brackish water lake. So according to this census, it's seen that the population of these dolphins actually doubled. Odisha, it's shown that the population doubled. This is due to conservation of these, elimination of this illegal fishing, illegal fishing enclosures, which actually were a threat to these dolphins. So let's move on to now little bit we will see about each species. Coming to Irrawaddy, it's in Silica, it's found in Odisha. Then it is also found in other areas of the world. One is mostly they are spread in South and Southeast Asia. They are found in the Irrawaddy of Myanmar. That's the name of this dolphin. Irrawaddy, it's a river in Myanmar. So they are found there. Then it is found in Then they are found in Mahakam of Indonesian Borneo, Borneo, Indonesian Borneo, then Mekong River of China. So these are the places where they are found, and their IUCN status is endangered. This is about Irrawaddy dolphin. Let's move on to next, humpback dolphin. So humpback dolphin basically is that this humpback dolphin, the one which is present in India, is called as Indian Ocean humpback dolphin. The reason behind is that they strive mostly over the Indian Ocean. That is, they are from Africa, Indian Ocean region covering Africa to India. So this is the reason why these are called as Indian Ocean humpback dolphin. This dolphin, the only dolphin species which is, sorry, not this one. So this is a Indian Ocean humpback thing. It is also endangered category. This dolphin is also under endangered category from South Africa to India. They are spread from South Africa to India along the Indian Ocean. So coming to Indian Ocean humpback dolphin, these are the very rare to find species, hence less fact is known about them. So these are the less known species. The last one is the bottleneck dolphin. This is the, as far as India is concerned, this is the only near threatened dolphin species. The other three are endangered. This is near threatened. So coming to their spread, they are found in India, North Australia, then east coast of Africa, and South China. These are the places where these dolphins are found, and they hold a near threatened status, and it's also found in Red Sea. So these are few informations about dolphins and their conservation. Since the species are always important for us, so go a bit nicely through this census. So let's move on to the next topic. So the next topic is about Garib Kalyan Rozgar Yojana. This is basically to help out the migrant workers who have returned back to their original state due to COVID-19 pandemic. So what it does is that it's used to boost the livelihood opportunities of the returning migrant workers. So what they are providing is they are providing around 120 days of work across the 116 states in districts in 6 states. The reason being these 6 states alone chosen is that the migrant workers are mostly from these 6 states, and they have returned back to these 6 states, and hence this creates a problem for their livelihood. That's why these 6 states are chosen, and it's in a mission mode. So the states that are chosen are Bihar, UP, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Jharkhand, and Odisha. These are the 6 states where the migrant worker population returning back was high. So this program actually, what it does is it's going to finish the public works, that is the infrastructure facilities that are much required, worth 50,000 crore. So this is a two-in-one purpose. At one time, the people are also employed. It's also an employment scheme as well as the infrastructure development. So it addresses these two issues. So what kind of infrastructure of developed is that it helps in providing broadband facilities. So broadband is one which is covered. So internet facilities, Wi-Fi, and other kind of infrastructures are being provided. So this is basically conducted by the Ministry of Rural Development. So it's done by Ministry of Rural Development, and it also makes its other coordinates are Common Service Centers. These common service centers are initiative under the National E-Governance Program. This is basically to promote e-governance. It's an initiative to promote e-governance, and that is the reason why they have partnered with this to provide this broadband facility and to give about digitalization, to bring in digitalization to move towards digital India. The other one is the Krishi Vigyan Kendras. These two are coordinating with the Ministry of Rural. The main agency is Ministry of Rural Development. These two are coordinating with Ministry of Rural Development to provide the livelihood opportunities to migrant workers. So this is all about the scheme. So next, go to the next issue. So the next issue is about the World Malaria Report. So the World Malaria Report is published by the World Health Organization. So it's basically a analysis of 20 years, analyzing the 20 years of global progress and challenges in the fight against malaria. So basically it gives the complete view of malaria and how to eradicate malaria. So if you will see, malaria, World Malaria Day is celebrated on 25th of April, and the theme of this year is Zero Malaria Starts With Me. So this is the theme. Actually in WHO there are only 4 diseases which have been specifically having global awareness days. One is malaria, which is 25th of April. Then the second comes HIV. HIV is recognized on December 1st. And coming to TB, TB is on 24th of March. And the last one is hepatitis, which is 28th of July. These are some of the diseases which we need to know a little bit more. Hepatitis also, there are 2 types, B and C. Basically, hepatitis B is sexually transmitted, but C isn't sexually transmitted. So there are few differences which we need to know in detail. We will see it in further sessions like AIDS and hepatitis and all. We will be dealing in a bit brief manner. So coming to the trends that is happening in India. So coming to this trends, overall in India, there has been a considerable decline in the malarial burden. And also, India is a country where the disease is endemic. Endemic in the sense, the occurrence of this disease is much higher in India. So though the Indian region is endemic, the country is endemic, there shows a declining trend of the malarial burden. So it has been declined to 17, there has been a decline of 17.6%. And also the annual parasitic incident, the strike range of that parasite has also been increasing. And comparing region wise, this region, there is a largest drop in cases in India in the region concerned. So these are few facts about the World Malaria Report. Now let's see certain things about how the malaria is caused. Actually, malaria is a parasitic disease that is caused by a parasite called Plasmodium, and it is infected through mostly by the mosquitoes, that is female Anopheles mosquito. Only the females Anopheles mosquitoes are held responsible for this. And Plasmodium, generally it's transmitted through 4 Plasmodium. This malaria is transmitted to 4 Plasmodium. Falciparum being the Plasmodium falciparum, that is the deadliest of all. So this happens to be much fatal. The disease caused by Plasmodium falciparum is fatal. Then comes Plasmodium ovale. Ivax is also another most common one, but ovale is a rare one. And Plasmodium malariae. Then also there is one more Plasmodium species that is known for causing the disease. The other is Plasmodium knowlesi. This Plasmodium knowlesi, what is this is, it's a zoonotic one. That is, this parasite is found, first it infects the macaques. From macaques, mostly in South Africa, Southeast Asia this happens. So it basically infects the macaques. From macaques it spread to humans. The other things are passed through mosquitoes, but this is a zoonotic one, passed from animals to humans. So this is one type which is there, passing which is zoonotic, which has a zoonotic trend. So there are other such initiatives which are done to eradicate malaria in India. The first thing being the National Framework for Elimination of Malaria. The strategy being used here is that in this national elimination framework for elimination of malaria, we are shifting from malaria control to elimination. This is the strategy used here. We are not going to control malaria anymore. We are going to eliminate it completely. This is the strategy used in this framework. So this framework, it's on the lines of general technical strategy for malaria. WHO strategy it is, which is under the Global Malaria Program, which is guiding the Global Malaria Program. So it was done by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and it was given in the year 2016. Also, it is that should be noted that in National Rural Health Mission, it talks about the elimination of vector-borne diseases, which includes malaria. So here also we talk about malaria, which is a vector-borne disease. So this is one. Then comes the Mera India initiatives. So this Mera India initiative is basically Malaria Elimination Research Alliance India. This is the full form of it. So it is done by ICMR. ICMR is agency helping in it. So basically what it does is it works with other partners. It's a conglomeration of partners who are working in elimination of malaria. So many other institutions which are working in elimination of malaria, they all come together and try to bring an initiative that can eliminate malaria. Then comes the Daman initiatives. So coming to the Daman initiatives, Daman initiative is basically by ICMR. So Daman initiative is by the ICMR, National Institute of Malaria Research. So that is the one responsible for the. It is engagement of 2-3 institutions. So basically, it is done in Odisha. So ICMR, National Institute of Malarial Research. So in NIMR, this one holds, and then comes the National Vector-Borne Disease Control Program of Odisha, as well as Medicines for Malaria Venture. These are the 3 institutes involved with this Daman. The full form of Daman is Durgamma Anchalare Malaria Nirakaran. This is the full form of the Daman initiative. So what it does is basically in this initiative, they are going to build innovative strategy, inbuilt innovation to combat malaria of asymptotic malaria. It is for asymptotic malaria basically, that is who doesn't show the symptoms of malaria, and it is for regions which are hardest hit and most inaccessible region. Basically this initiative is for most inaccessible and hardest risk regions, hit regions. So basically it is for these regions. So it is a Odisha government's program. It's done in Odisha basically. Then comes one more initiative. This is by the this initiative is implementation of high burden to high impact initiative. Basically in this what happens is WHO has listed around 11 countries where the incidence of malaria is much higher. So high malaria burden countries. So 11 countries are identified by WHO, and it partnerships with RBM, an institute called RBM. It partnerships with this institute to eliminate malaria. So in India, 4 states have been chosen. Those 4 states are West Bengal, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and MP. These are the 4 states which are chosen to implement this project to eliminate malaria. So India is one among the 11 countries which have been chosen by WHO as a high burden country. Next comes the National Strategic Plan for Malaria Elimination between the years 2017 to 2022. So this is for eliminating malaria. So elimination targets in various places of the country depending upon the endemicity. Depending upon the endemicity, we are going to eliminate the malarial disease. So this is all about malaria that we should know. So let's move on to the next issue. The next issue is about voting reforms. The reason being it in news is that there has been election in 4 states that has been held recently. So this is one of the reason, as in Tamil Nadu, they were seeing to introduce the present reforms like bringing in postal votes for 80 plus above senior citizen, basically above 80 plus of age. So this is the reason why it is in news, and these definitions can be asked directly in examination. So coming to postal voting. So basically it is for major, it was there for service voters. Service voters are nothing but people who are in armed forces or government, people who are posted outside the country, and people in the election duty, they are also meant to vote through postal voting. So what they does is they cast their vote secretly, so remotely, that is they cast their vote remotely, and then that information is sent to the election commission before counting of votes. So this is also called as electronically transmitted postal vote ballot system. So it should be ensured that the secrecy of voting has been maintained. So now this has under Representation of People Act, it has been said that it can be extended to senior citizen as well, and it has shown that in Tamil Nadu they were discussing, and it has been rolled out that above 80 can be casting their votes to postal ballots. Also, it is being in consideration that this kind of system are to be introduced for disabled people as well, since they face difficulty in voting. So this is one regarding that. Next comes the proxy voting. In proxy voting, what happens is the person who wants to vote, if he is out of the country or it's kind of NRA and those people, even the postal ballot and proxy voting are considered for NRA. So recently in 2017, the bill would have been passed, in which says that people, NRA people, they can cast their vote. Postal votes have been introduced, as well as proxy also they are into. It was already introduced. So NRS has been given. So in 2003 election, for the first time in Lok Sabha and Assembly constituencies, this was held. What is proxy voting is in the sense election. So when an election is there, the person who wants to vote for a candidate, he tells his close net or a close relative, maybe his spouse or father or mother, whoever he wants to communicate, he tells the person to whom he wants to vote, and in this way it happens. The person who he has represented will go and vote for the person who is not able to vote. This is how it happens. Coming to NRIs, how the postal voting happens is that if the NRI is in a say country like Dubai, from Dubai he will go to the Indian embassy, he will give the paper to whom he has casted the vote. From the Indian embassy, from there will be passing on the things to India over here, and then that will be taken into consideration for voting. As I said, classified service voters are those who are belong to armed forces. Under Army Act, it includes all the three services of Army, Navy, Air Force, everything is considered. So they can either vote through postal or proxy voting. So these are few things which are to be noted. So it's available for armed persons who are inside the state, that is inside, like within states, whoever is moving, then government official who can be traveling to other countries. So those are also included into proxy and postal voting. So let's move on to the next issue. So this is how the service voter thing will be done. So husband in the form of separate declaration, no separate declaration is required, just they can go and vote. This is how proxy voting happens. So these are the postal ballot, this is the procedure. So just go through it. So let's move on to the next issue. So the next issue is about Kumbha Sashatikaran program. So the reason being it in news is that basically this program is for potters community, to enhance or empower the potters community, implemented by KVIC. It is seen that recently in Gandhinagar in Gujarat, 100 potter wheels have been given to 100 this pottery artisans. So this is the reason why it's being in news. 100 artisans it's given. So it's basically to develop the traditional industries and empower such kind of traditional industries. Basically the scheme was launched in the year 2018 for empowering the potters community. There are many other schemes as well which are implemented by the government of India, that is Ministry of small and small and medium enterprises. So MSME, they have these two programs, PMEGP and the SFRUFTI program for improving the traditional industries, basically for that. And so in this what will happen is KVIC will be providing the training technical. KVIC is a statutory body under the KVIC Act. It is also, it functions under MSME. What this KVIC does is it provides training, technology, market linkages, as well as visibility to this traditional industries or artistic groups. Basically, to improve the livelihood of these artistic groups, this KVIC is into function. So market linkages and visibility is taken into account. So coming to Pradhan Mantri Employment Generation Program. So in this program, it is a credit linked subsidy scheme. So basically to promote self-employment. So it is to promote self-employment. It is on the lines of Atmanirbhar. So this is for basically the schemes of MSMEs for expansion of traditional industries as well as to double the support to the self-employment people. So doubling of support. So next comes the Spurti scheme. What happens is Spurti scheme, it's a scheme of fund for regeneration of traditional industries. So what it does is that it makes the traditional industries productive as well as competitive. So it is to make productive and competitive. So the industries are grouped into clusters and the quality of these industries are done and the traditional industries are regained back. This is how the initiative works. So let's move on to the next issue. The next issue is about the Delimitation Commission. The reason being it in news is that on the birth anniversary of our former president Pranab Mukherjee, a letter would be read in which it says that the next Delimitation Commission should be based on the 2031 census. This is one news why it's in this. Why it is one reason why it's in news. The second thing being, this is the first thing. It says that depending upon the census, the states are to be reorganized. First, the boundaries to be set based on these centers. The boundaries redrawn based on this census. Second is that the states, according to States Reorganization Act, the states are to be divided. That is, the states are to be made small. So this is the reason why it was in news. One of the reason why it was in news. The second thing is the Jammu and Kashmir thing. So Jammu and Kashmir has been bifurcated into union territories of Jammu and Kashmir and Ladakh. This is one of the reason. And the one more reason is that in the northeastern states of Arunachal, Manipur, Assam and Nagaland, it was said that the Delimitation Commission has to be set up. But it was called unconstitutional and void by the High Courts. So these are the reasons why it was in news. The articles that deals with Delimitation Commission is Article 82, which says that Parliament after every census can constitute the Delimitation Act. So Delimitation Act can be passed, and depending upon the Delimitation Act, the President can set up the Delimitation Commission, which is coordinated by the Election Commission of India, who takes the necessary powers. So this Delimitation Commission is such powerful that even the Supreme Court or the courts cannot question the functioning of this Delimitation Commission. So the next thing is the Article 170, which states that states get divided based upon the Delimitation Commission, and they are divided into territorial constituencies. So this Delimitation Commission is basically for fixing limits and boundaries of territorial constituencies. First, it was done in the year 1950-51. It is to be noted that after 1981 and 91, there was no Delimitation Commission set up. So there are few facts about this Delimitation Commission. Basically, it is to get the political division of our country. That is to set the political boundaries of the country. These Delimitation Commission are set up. So what happened is there has been a mismatch in this Delimitation Commission as it was freezed. How it happened is that now it would have been told that only by 2026 the Delimitation Commission should be set up. These kind of things would have been come. Only in by 2026, based upon the Delimitation Commissions, this kind of further redrawing of boundaries should be made. The problem behind is that Earlier years, in the 1980s or so, what happened is due to the family planning exercise by various states, there has been a considerable decline in population in the southern states. So certain states were performing well in this aspect. So because of this, since the seats in the Lok Sabha and Assembly constituencies are based on the delimitation commission's fixing of boundaries and those things, it's based on the population. These countries were performing well in kind of population reductions, as well as they were performing well in the developmental sides as well. So in welfare measures as well as the development measures, these states were growing well. So this was, if we are decreasing the number of seats given to these states depending upon the population. As the population reduces, these states are to be awarded lesser seats. But if we are doing so, this will be a unfair thing for the states, because they are doing their best to bring about development of the country. So this was the reason why, since there was a mismatch among many states, what the government thought is that they thought of fixing a upper, I mean limit. So what they told is the Lok Sabha and Assembly seats are to be based on 2001 census only. So this was fixed as a baseline for the Lok Sabha and Assembly elections until 2026. This is how it is going to happen due to the ununiform population growth throughout the country. So next thing was this for redrawing of the boundary. What was done is 1971 census has been set as the uh, base figure. Like base figure, it was said that total number of seats to be based on 2021, and parliamentary, the states redrawing was to be based on 1971 census. So the states are allocated based on the 1971 census. So this is what happened in coming to the delimitation commission. Now what would have been said is that depending upon the 2031 census, there has to be a boundaries redrawn, and the states are to be divided into smaller units so that administration of the states become much easier. So this is all about the delimitation commission. This is of much importance as it has been in news. So please go through the static part even more nicely. Important things I have covered. If there are anything, please comment to us. So let's move on to the next issue. So the next issue is about serve power. Coming to what is serve power, basically it is a uh, platform to promote women scientists, research and development by women scientists, to bring in gender equality in science studies, that is scientific research. So mitigate the gender disparities. So the full form of it is promoting opportunities for women in exploratory research. So this is done by SERB. SERB is a statutory body under Department of Science and Technology under the Ministry of Science and Technology. It's a statutory body. It's exclusively for women scientists to get developed in the scientific research. So there are two parameters through which this is done. One is providing of fellowship. So one is SERB fellowship program. The another one is research grants. So these are the two ways in which it's done. So how it is done is like the target age of women is between 35 to 55 years of age. So reserve grants, the total amount that can be given is rupees 10 lakhs per annum is the research grant that can be given. And coming to stipend, it is for fellowship, it is said that 15,000 extra will be given with addition to regular pay. So basic pay plus 15,000 to be given as stipend, and this happens these things happens over only one time in the career. So once in a career period, this helps, this grants are being given, this kind of empowerment are done. And one more thing is this fellowship is for 3 years, and there is no further extension of this fellowship. So this is about the fellowship, this CERT Power program for bringing in more women scientists into research and for bringing gender equality in scientific research. To be noted here is that National Science Day was celebrated on 28th February every year, and this year's theme is Women in Science. So this is all about surf power. So let's move on to the last topic of today. The last topic is PM Money. So PM Money is nothing but it's a public Wi-Fi access or public Wi-Fi access network interface is the full form done for expanding the broadband interface. So it's for basically broadband internet services. To expand the broadband internet services, it is done. It is done by the Ministry of Telecommunications, which is the nodal ministry for doing this. So aims to increase the broadband connectivity in India to push internet adoption. So Digital India mission for making India digital. So it's under it's one of the Digital India missions. So coming to who does it, it's done through public data offices. These are the officers which are responsible, and no licenses or fee has to be paid for this broadband internet through this net. These public data officers, they need not pay any license or fee. They need not have license and they do not need any fee. So in a way, this also setting up of these broadband institution or internet services helps in employment generation, as well as it is a infrastructure project. So both are done hand in hand. And one more thing is, the person who are using this public Wi-Fi, they need to pay for the amount of network they have consumed. That is how it's done. So this facilitates between service providers and users. So it's a facility between service providers and users, and this PM Money acts as a user payment UPI interface for connectivity services. So this is all about PM Money, and this is for disposal of income in hands of small and medium enterprises. They can be involved in creating this generation of this Wi-Fi. So this is for stable and it's a high-speed internet data. So business friendly. So it's helpful in ease of doing business, enhancing employment, and then quality of life. So this is all about today's session. So we will be meeting with you with the session tomorrow as well. So thank you. Let's end the session for today. If there are any suggestions that you would like to make, please comment to us. Thank you.